Okay, Dan, so tell us a little bit about Opus Research and your long-standing interest in conversational commerce.
Sure. So Opus is a market analyst firm. We've been around since 1985, and that's when I started it. We were looking at high volume contact centers, if you can believe that. So at that point, the state of the art was probably in enhanced directory assistance, which sounds kind of weird, but you think of something that understands what somebody's asking in a limited domain. I kind of call them the idiot savants of interactive services. And they were quick to answer, very accurate. But now let's fast forward to around the turn of the century. Think about 2000, when you look at what's going on with speech rec becoming part of the IVR world. You bring in natural language understanding and some of the technologies that we're seeing now in these conversational entities. And back then I called them conversational access technologies. Now I framed it as conversational commerce, almost forgot, because the term's been used in a different way lately. So in 2012 we held our first conversational commerce conference, and that was around sort of the clash in the contact center between marketing and the classic support people, and we saw those roles coming together back then. Now conversational commerce, I think people start thinking, is about bots on messaging platforms, and we're doing a lot of answering of questions of where those two sorts of communities come together.
So that was back 2012. I mean, from my perspective, I think last year, 2016, was interesting because it suddenly went mainstream.
Yep.
It wasn't just the intelligent assistants, but its context. AI suddenly popped up. But I think it's an interesting thing that if you mug up a bit on the history, this is not something that's turned up literally 12 months back. It's had a much longer tail of coming to market, hasn't it?
Yeah, I like the way you put that. Yeah, I mean, I actually think there were parallel universes, and there's sort of Dev Nation that's fascinated with the tools to build bots, and there's these long-standing, almost academics who have their PhDs in linguistics and speech rec, and it gets really interesting. There's people dusting off their old treatises about computational linguistics and how machines can understand what we say. And then there's a whole bunch of people who say, no, I want pull-down menus to build purpose-driven bots on Alexa or something. So they'll come together, but there's a lot of questions to answer at this point.
But I think a lot of I think it's interesting that the big guys, the Frightful Five, the Amazons, the Googles, who else have we got in there? We've got Apple, Microsoft, all that kind of lot there.
Yep.
It's interesting that all of them seem to decide that a bit like starlings all going in the same direction spontaneously, that last year was the year that I think Google, for example, had its strapline as being mobile first for 2 or 3 conferences and scrubbed that out and said AI first, so and then we've got this language of cognitive computing, so in other words, suddenly it's begun the big thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we've been finding for our clients that are implementing for firms and brands that you have to sort of think about what we call sort of 3 pillars of technology. And if you think the left side are the sort of bottom, easy-to-use tools, almost putting a conversational interface in front of some static amount of information. And then you have the Frightful Five, or whatever you want to call them, that are working with deep neural networks, with huge databases and knowledge bases. There's some happy medium where the learnings on the highly creative developmental side intersects with some of the really deep stuff where, you take Google, they didn't start mobile, they started with the idea that you could make the entire machine readable world accessible to individuals, and mobile was one of the channels. The little slot on your web browser where you typed in terms has become conversational, and that's not lost on marketers or people that are trying to offer good customer service.
So, I mean, in truth, I think that since it went mainstream, articles have been good, galore at the moment. Most popular headlines are, silicon life forms are going to take over carbon life forms. We're all going to be out of a job. I think that so we're speaking at the end of Q1, in 2017, and I've now started to notice the first set of conversations about down in the trough of disillusionment, bots have failed, bots have been overstated, bots are being clipped back even by Facebook, who've been one of the big things, because actually the design is difficult. Remembering IVRs, that was tough to get right. That's not a technical issue, that's a design service issue. And of course, if you popularize something like this, then you're going to have a whole bunch of people not really understanding some of the nuances, and as a result it's going to be pretty damned irritating to the consumer. So we've probably hit a little bit of frothiness and are going to allow that to dissipate. But I also noticed that the marketing press are beginning to turn up now, going bot this, bot that, hey, we're not really in customer service, but a bot might be able to help us out whilst we're writing yet more copy to bore our customers with, So it's interesting to see how many people have latched onto it. And then for you and I, we know that there's some real stalwarts in the industry, like the Nuancers, like the CX company, those kind of crowds who've probably been around for 15 years, 10 years, 5 years.
Yeah,
and they've been going on and on, and they are in many respects all the people that have contributed to the case histories that you've been putting out through the conferences over the last 3-4 years.
Yes, well, you just said a lot, so that was a mouthful. We did a survey of, we did a report 2 years ago about the firms that were working with enterprises to build enterprise grade intelligent assistants. So let's hone in on that. We use the term intelligent assistant as opposed to artificial intelligence in the enterprise because we think that it is through intelligent assistance, or what some people call intelligence augmentation, that will consume AI, not that AI consumes us. So that's kind of important. And then we looked at 14 firms back 2 years ago that were specializing in this area. Artificial. I'm going to offend people if I leave anybody out, but artificial solutions, creative virtual, IntelliResponse, which is now part of 24/7, Nuance, and I'm not going to get to all the rest. But the idea was that they were building solutions for usually the digital marketing folks, and they were embedding them across multiple channels. Some of them grew out of chat. Chat became virtual chat. Some of them grew out of the IVR world, so IVRs became the basis for virtual agents. And so we've had more than a decade with some of these highly evolved sort of virtual agents. And in the meantime, I honestly hate hearing like the hype curve or the uncanny valley and that sort of thing, because it implies creepiness, it implies invasiveness, it implies sort of a failure. When we see ourselves right at the we're past we're sort of crossed the chasm. There are technologies that work. There are applications where these technologies are very appropriate, and we're seeing it growing. So. There will be froth, there'll be a lot of misunderstanding, and frankly, that's why we're trying to bring together the community of customer experience people who think about this all the time. Is this an existential threat to human beings helping other humans out, or are they tools for humans to, use the appropriate amount of technology to get the stuff done that they're trying to do?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the language is still very loose. People talk about robots in call centers, and I it's going to be a bot, but a robot is not going to be physically sat next to another advisor. That ain't going to happen.
That's right.
I do think that on the change management aspect of it is that firms are probably going to be quite happy to go for the augmentation as opposed to the substitution route, simply because I think that there is a genuine upside around of humanizing work, allowing the individual then to concentrate upon the value add aspects that humans bring, the dealing with emotion, dealing with complexity, building relationships, and all of that kind of good stuff. And if you're going to lose a few people to attrition, I think that will characterize the next couple of years. allowing AI to make work smarter, more responsive, more intelligent, more focused, and all those kind of good things. So I think that's a misnomer. That's it's a popularist approach. But what? Oh, going back to the numbers, I know you were just talking about that. The report was interesting that you've just produced for a number of reasons, but one of them was, your stab at quantifying the size of market, and I thought that was an interesting perspective, which is worth just dwelling on for a minute, because I think it gives people a sense of how much best practice is out there, and indeed how many people have already gotten into the game.
Exactly. So the report 2 years ago, we counted the 13 or so firms and saw spending in say the 250 million range on these specific types of technologies by enterprises. And incidentally, we do think enterprises are going to underwrite the growth of intelligent assistants in this domain. I mean, there'll be other stuff where it's all about marketing and advertising, and the intelligence is being used to create better spam in a way, but it is in enterprises trying to help their customers, trying to help their employees be more productive and get things done, that we're going to see interesting stuff. So 225 million like 2 years ago. This time around, we're profiling 28 firms, and there's about $1.2 billion that's been spent on their products and services on an annual basis. That's what we're forecasting for 2017. And then fast forward to 2020, 2022, we're really looking at the creation of a $5 billion market somewhere in that area, and that's still supernormal growth, and it shows real tangible value for these technologies in the customer care domains.
Yeah, and is that, by the way, interesting point? Is that growth focused upon the service use case, or are you seeing that slightly broader across the engagement cycle?
It's the whole engagement, and that's a really good point, because that's been organic, and that's been a product of the learning and evolution of the service from being sort of static, like a conversational front end to some static information, like a glorified FAQ, into some true, we're handling a lot of interactions with customers. We've discovered that you can have some heavy-hitting topic areas where you just understand the questions that people are usually asking an agent. You bring in a virtual agent, and it discovers that, hey, there's a chance to upsell here. There's a chance, somebody thinks they're asking something about their bill, very common, when they're really finding out that they want to lower their bill, and there's probably a better service or a better way. So some of the stuff that live agents naturally were doing, a virtual agent can intervene, can do some triage, and then figure out whether you go, to a live agent, whether they can do, restart the cable box, whatever it is. We're seeing more and more automated handling of those. I guess it's not really an engagement, but these events that are.
But the interesting thing for me, I'm talking a lot at the moment about conversational continuity. And a whole number of examples. If you go from Twitter to phone, for example, because you've got to go into a private channel, or you start from an intelligent agent and you go onto a live one. The point is, we don't, as a customer, want to go back to the beginnings of the conversation, re-explain ourselves, be re-authenticated.
Right.
And I think one of the key things is that with all forms of self-service, you have to recognize in the design function that it might well escalate to a human, in which case you need to hit it at the point at which you've got to, rather than go back to the beginning of the snakes and ladders. Otherwise, that's extremely irritating from a customer point of view.
Yeah, and what I think we find really reassuring is taking the intelligent assistant framing for it. The individuals become the center. Everybody talks about companies becoming customer centric. It's the ability of these technologies to recognize who you are, to bring your history into bear, and to use this artificial intelligence, if you will, to do a better job of gauging the intent, maybe even before an individual knows what they're asking for, sort of arriving at their point of destination. So that's sort of cool.
That's a good point. So tell me this, we talked about a bit of a spectrum. We've got bots at one end and some deep learning at the other end, to put it very crudely.
Yeah.
What's the point in that sort of competency curve? Do we get things like context and intent turning up?
Yeah.
The bit that kind of makes it feel that it's smart as opposed to irritatingly stupid.
So I kind of call it the Goldilocks zone or the just right. And it's actually recognizing intent just because on the back end it's ingested a lot of activity, and knows fairly quickly what the purpose of a call is based on classic analytics. And this gets into investment that's already been made in the back end of contact centers.
Mm-hmm.
And the flip side is helping businesses accomplish their goals as well, because that's how the business case is built. So, we as you mentioned at our conferences, we have a lot of case studies, and in our very first one, we had a competitive local exchange carrier called Windstream that had a very specific task for a set of virtual agents, because they knew that they knew that a core part of their business was coming from fixed line residential phone service, which was something that was kind of going away as their wireless grew. But they knew that the people from their residences were going to make frequent calls, things about their bill, things about adding new services and stuff like that, that were predictable. Hence, you're bringing intent in, you kind of understand it. And they were finding that it was too expensive to keep a community of live agents serving this diminishing business, and so they took a leap. They worked with Nuance in this case, and they built a virtual agent that handled these calls, and they found that customer satisfaction went up, the promptness of which they could answer questions went up, and the cost of service went down. And we see that sort of pattern repeatedly. So that's on the contact center side. Over on the bot side, my favorite right now is Edward at Radisson Blu Hotels. And so you have a constrained sort of topic area that's actually pretty robust. The travelers have a lot of questions, and they're able to text Edward and everything from ordering breakfast to finding out, well, the classic one, checkout time.
Where's the gym? Where's the gym? Where's the soap?
Right, all that stuff. That's a pretty fun one as well.
So actually that raises an interesting question, because Edward, I think, is a text-based interface. Let's assume, for the sake of discussion, that the Nuance was more voice or whatever, and you've got Belia's sitting in the middle. Let's get down to a sort of another area which I think is really important to cover off. A lot of people are going to become attracted now this has got mainstreamed. They're beginning to be thinking about this, and clearly it's probably the investment is as long as a piece of string. You might have been attracted by an article that told you that bots are quick and cheap, and that looks kind of tempting too. You can do voice, you can do text as well. How do you start to make those decisions, and what sort of process of thinking should you go through if you're literally getting into the market for the first time and you don't want to lose your job?
Wow. Okay. And let's make this the last question. What would you say around that? And so a bunch of these topics will come up at our conference in May 4th and 5th, and the idea is to bring in people with the experience to tell you where the starting point is, that they and their procedure, because there's this is your question is like, how long is a piece of string? But there's sort of two camps, and it's something to think about. One is, who's going to come in with with a solution with certain capabilities right out of the box, be it understanding of the challenges of a particular vertical, just a set of questions it can answer right away, or an engagement model where it can come and ingest your information and build an agent quickly that can demonstrate results to you, to your decision-making people, to the people with the budget and the purse strings and that sort of thing. And that should be a starting point as you anticipate growing more robust, bringing in more topic areas, having the agent do more things. And bear in mind, to your point about, bots seem like they should be quick and simple, whereas like a agent that talks is not. The simplicity should apply to the interface. There can be a lot of complex stuff going on in the back end with knowledge management, with machine learning, with refining, with adding new skills, adding new instances, and understanding more stuff. But the front end can be as simple as a text bot or a choices on a carousel on a smartphone and that sort of thing. So we're seeing the definition of conversations changing. We're seeing dialogue models sort of changing as well. But we are always seeing the importance of having an understanding of what information from your back end is being brought to bear in real time to fulfill the intent or the objectives of an individual that's contacting you. And that becomes central.
And I think the other thing is I get people to think a lot about the type of profile of their customers, obviously, and their digital behavior. And one of the big sources for that is, in the UK anyway, is Ofcom. They do a biannual piece of research. And it's interesting that as consumers, this is all of us now, 16 plus, we're spending an equal amount of time still on the desktop, and also on the mobile devices. And it's an interesting proposition coming back to, how we provide then intelligent assistance. We probably need to think about a more traditional, way of engagement on the desktop. And for some of our customers, we definitely need to be thinking about the mobile device. And so what would you say? Do people need to think about that all in one go, or probably just take a smaller, more focused area and think about just find out whether customers are open to this stuff?
Well, we know customers are open, and what we've been trying to say is that there's these intelligent assistant models benefit from having a single source of truth or the right answer. So that if you pay attention to what's going on, whether you're serving it up to a live agent in a contact center as the best answer in a pop-up or, in a screen pop, as you embark, you sort of think, okay, I want to invest in intelligent assistance. I want to understand the core sort of knowledge stuff that I'm managing. And then I can treat the next shiny object that comes along, be it a mobile app, be it an Alexa skill, be it a Google action, as something that is still looking at this same one single source of truth. So, so the objective is to not have a bunch of little point solutions that each cost money, that each require care and feeding, which create another silo. And say, okay, no, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to unify how I present information about my products, services, and capabilities across a number of channels. And more power to you.
That's good advice. Yeah, no, that's really good advice. Okay, so in terms of understanding who's out there in the market, and my range of possible options, I've had a good look at the report that you've recently put out there, and tell us a little bit more about that, because I think that's a kind of a handy place to start in terms of understanding what the guys are up to and what they could possibly offer to people.
Yeah, well, it was a labor of love, I want to say that. We did identify 28 firms. They're not all direct competitors with one another, but as you look at intelligent assistance across multiple channels, you have everybody from, IBM and IPsoft and some of the deep neural networking people as, having one approach. You have the longstanding folks that we mentioned, the nuances and others that that bring their solutions, and we're trying to provide a way to evaluate what's right for you. All of these approaches have merit, and
Yeah.
from just sort of coming at it as a novice, as a lot of people were, and still are. You need to think about, as you were saying, what can work out of the box. Where can I get demonstrable results quickly? Time to action, and then time to return, time to accomplish business objectives come in full force, and then who's thinking ahead? Who's going to support me as I add new domains, new capabilities, or add my customers. Just understand how their behaviors, their intents are changing as well. So it's a balance of quick results and not foreclosing on the future as you make your investment. And it's
yes. So your Goldilocks partners, if you want, that sweet spot there.
Yeah.
Are you able to get something up in a 6-month period? Is that
absolutely.
Sort of
No, there's well, okay. So lately there have been, and these could come from IBM or CX company. All these there are results that you can have in weeks. I mean, actually, there's some that you can do within days if you're within the confines of just inviting somebody to come in, ingest your knowledge base, identify the most common intents, build sort of the models that say, hey, 80% of people's problems are handled by these 5 topic areas, and we can build that in a month or two. And off you go, and but it's just sort of having a framework of what your expectations are, how your people do remain necessary, even though this is all about bringing a virtual agent in to do the work of people. Well, you've created all kinds of interesting jobs for other folks who are, or the same folks perhaps, who are the subject matter experts in the areas that you're getting calls about. And we're building for the future. We're building a community of folks that know more and more about what it takes to get started, to keep something going, to constantly learn from customers and learn how to serve them better.
Because actually, you've got quite a good, vibrant LinkedIn group on that, don't you, already?
Yeah. That's the.
We were dialoguing only yesterday on the Valley of Uncertainty, I think, the Uncanny Valley.
Uncanny Valley, my least favorite term. Exactly.
Yeah. But that's a good point. Anyone listening on this one then, how do I get access to that?
So that is a LinkedIn group called Intelligent Assistant Developers and Implementers. Probably too long a handle, but it's there. If they reach out to either you or me by email, we can invite them in, or it's an open group, so they should be able to just navigate there and say they want to join. And there you go. So great.
That's that. We've talked about the report. Last thing, let's just focus on, because it was my first time last year, on the conference. You brought it across to the UK, and it was really real good fun. So it's a 2-day thing.
Day and a half.
The thing I like particularly about it is a lot of people talking about their own experience, their own use case, which I think is a good thing, because you get a much more realistic experience of what's the possible, what's the art of the possible.
Right.
But you also had some pretty interesting roundtable sessions with vendors, I remember, and some good debates about, what the future looks like and how people are seeing that. And there was a lot of conversation that went on. And interestingly with this, you've also got a parallel conference going on, which I think is worth saying something about as well, because they do actually mesh in together. So without spoiling that, do you want to just talk about how you've kind of evolved that conference and, the range of topics, and actually, more particularly, what have we got for this year?
Yeah. So this year, it's the Intelligent Assistance Conference. It's in London at Claridge's. And so we're so deep in the agenda. I hope this makes sense. So we're attracting implementers like crazy. So and it's in government. We have Enfield coming and talking. We have.
Is that the Amelia one?
It is. It is. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm gonna end up forgetting people. So the idea. So we have people from the pharmaceutical, banking and financial for sure, telecoms, and it's all about how it's about answering those questions. How do I get started? What's the balance of humans with machines, given that we're doing this? And other sorts of considerations for people that are implementing. The Parallel Conference is about what we call opti-channel authentication, because we honestly believe you do a better job of providing individualized service if you have strong confidence that you are that the person you're talking to is whom he or she claims to be. And that sounds sort of subtle, but people, this challenge that you described of, tweeting with somebody and then having a phone call result from that, the technologies that are used to link that Twitter account with the phone number and that sort of thing, and then also having strong, especially in banking, healthcare, go down the list where it's important that you protect privacy at the same time. So what are the techniques of knowing with confidence that somebody is whom they claim to be without sort of,
low effort.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's what that's all about. And seeing as we're coming up on a half hour here, I think this might be a good time to, we'd love to see, just a dramatically large group of people with great questions to come and attend the conference. We're getting great registrations right now, and it's been across a lot of the implementer community. And that's what's been sort of cool. When we started out, it was skewed towards the technology providers talking about their technologies. Now it's about the business decision makers talking about how these technologies are helping them meet their business objectives. And more importantly, since we're getting into the customer experience, customer engagement community, just how effective this is in creating better engagement with customers.
Cool. So just to summarize, we talked a bit about pharmaceutical, we talked about local council. I know that we've got a telco in there, haven't we, who's coming along to talk?
Yep.
Any other verticals that come to mind?
Banking, financial, pharmaceutical, telco, I know I'm forgetting, but that's...
Okay, problem. So that's a pretty good mix. And precisely the days that it's being held on again, when is it? Is it the 20...
No, May 4th and 5th.
May 4th and 5th. You see, I knew I needed to get clear about something on there. There you go. Okay. So put that in the diary if people haven't heard that already.
Okay.
Good. I think we're going to have to wrap this up, Dan, because we knew it. We were going to try and do a 10-minute gig, and we're at least minutes into the conversation. So I think we've covered some good topics there, but we should probably call a halt on that right now.
Okay.
And that's probably enough for people to absorb and hopefully be interested by.
Yeah.
So
this was a real pleasure. We'll be talking again soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah.